There we go. Bravo. Okay, perfect timing. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for lunch here, or the lunch hour. I'm really excited about doing this class or this workshop. I got my start or introduction to meditation in the early 1990s. My therapist was a practicing Vajrayana Buddhist, and I really liked this guy, and I thought he was cool, and he kind of became my role model. And one day during a session, he went out to go to the bathroom, and I looked at the titles of the books in his bookshelf, and for some reason this title, Open Heart, Clear Mind, spoke to me. And I bought the book, and I read it, I think in one sitting. And there was a passage in the book that I'm gonna paraphrase. It went something like, if somebody calls you an idiot, where's the harm? Is it in I? Is it in D? Is it in oat? And that passage literally blew my mind. I could feel the synapses in my brain rearranging. It was like, oh my God, I have a choice as to how I respond to all phenomenon. And if somebody's calling me an idiot, I can interpret it as an insult and get all huffy and puffy and reactive, or I can choose a different response. And I realized that, we have external phenomenon that we're dealing with, and we have internal phenomenon that we're dealing with constantly. Our internal phenomenon, our thoughts, our emotions, our bodily functions. And then we've got external phenomenon, other people, that's the big one, situations that we get ourselves in, our environment. And then in today's modern world, this bloody thing, social media and email and texts and, all that stuff. So I started pulling on that string. And during the 90s, I think I read this book like 20 times. Oh, I just kept reading it over and over. And my ex-wife would look at me and go, "You're reading that book again?" And I said, it just spoke to me. And about 7 years later, my therapist, same guy, said, I've seen a lot of progress in you. Oh, and I, as a result of this book, I started a meditation practice. I really had no idea what I was doing. So we had a very small walk-in closet in our bedroom. And I would literally sit on the floor in the closet amidst all the shoe odor and, meditate. I would sit quietly. And my kids have fond memories of dad sitting in the closet among the shoes, So my therapist basically said, you should seek enlightenment. And I had no idea what the hell he meant by that. And so I started reading more books in the Vajrayana tradition mostly. And what I came upon was you can only get so far by yourself. You really need a teacher. And so I kind of set the intention to find a teacher. And the next thing I knew, I was at a yoga studio and they had a guest, this Lama showed up, Lama Norbu. And the next thing I knew, we were friends and he was staying at my house, and one thing led to another. I ended up in a distance learning equivalent program of a traditional Tibetan 3-year retreat. So I followed the Vajrayana path all the way to the end. And in 2012, I was the executive director or executive chairman of a Dharma center in Menlo Park. And I was just about to start teaching meditation when I moved to Marin. So I'm really excited about our time together today because I guess 8 years later, I'm for the first time I'm leading a session about meditation. So anyway, that's a little bit of my background and my story and how I came to this. Now, let's just see here. So we've got a challenge in the sense that we have a mind-body system that is more powerful, according to IBM, than 500 of the world's largest supercomputers hardwired together. While each of us is on this call, in every second, our brain is processing approximately 20 million bits of data. Actually, it's our mind-body system every second. And IBM estimated back in 2012 that it would take 500 of the world's largest supercomputers hardwired together and about 30 billion watts of power to do what our brain does in every waking moment of every day, in every second, with about 25 watts of power. That's what we're wandering around in. The problem is nobody gives us an operating manual. And the real challenge in life is each of us has to develop our own unique operating manual for our own unique mind-body system. We're all different. And one operating manual is not going to work for everyone. Some of the basic principles, sure, but each one of us has a unique zone of regulation that we have to try to keep our mind-body system within in order to function competently in the world. And meditation is a fabulous tool to begin to show us where the driver's seat of this magnificent mind-body system that each one of us is wandering around with, and where the control panel is. And what meditation really does is it helps us find the driver's seat, find the controls, and it gives us the tools to get back in the seat, get back in that driver's seat when we get knocked out of the seat by life, which happens all the time. So one of the challenges with our mind-body system is that we have a limbic brain, and essentially we're predated creatures, right? We don't have claws and we don't have fangs, and essentially, from an evolutionary biology perspective, we are walking danger detectors. And a lot of the 20 million bits of data that our mind-body system is processing every second are related to surviving as predated creatures. So we get triggered by our perceptions. And when we get triggered, we go out of the frontal cortex where we think and we cognate and so cogitate and so forth, and we get triggered by the amygdala, and we're no longer present. When we get triggered, we are in a fight or flight response. We're in an automatic defense pattern, and we're essentially victimized by fear. So, and ultimately, where we want to end up is having the seat of our consciousness go from the limbic brain to the frontal cortex and ultimately into the heart. And what's coming out in the research is that the ultimate center of the mind-body system is in the center of the heart, which generates the most powerful electromagnetic field in the body. And what what they say in spiritual, in the Tibetan tradition is the longest journey on the planet is the 18 inches from the frontal cortex to the heart. How do you, going back to open heart, clear mind, how do you drop, first of all, how do you get your consciousness out of the limbic brain centered here and stabilized? And then how do you get the center of consciousness to drop from here to the heart? That's ultimately what a meditation practice will lead you to, is the union of wisdom and compassion, where you have simultaneous access to the heart and the mind. It's working as one, but it's centered in the heart. So what that allows you to do is operate in a continual flow state. And all of us have things that we do that put us into a flow state. Surfing is a great one. When you're surfing a wave like that, you got to be present. You got to be in the moment, and your mind-body system has to be on. Otherwise, you're going to get maytagged by the wave. In the contemporary business world, Frederick Laloux profiles in Reinventing Organizations 12 leaders who he calls teal leaders, who sense and respond to reality. And what he describes in this book are leaders who operate from the heart. They sense and respond to reality. They set the space. And what I think he means by that is, from an evolutionary biology perspective, whenever we're in a group, our consciousness literally entrains to the field of consciousness that is emanated by the leader. So going back to that heart math diagram, if you're operating from the heart and you're emanating a non-fear-based field of consciousness, that's going to create a harmonious space, a harmonious environment in the workplace that is endemic of peak human performance. And the neuroscientific research from Paul Zak and others shows that when we work in environments where we're loved and trusted, we're twice as productive, twice as happy, and we have half the employee turnover. So meditation is a gateway to mastery over the mind-body system. So it's really a wonderful practice. And one of the things I wanted to do with the talk today, there are so many mindfulness programs, and they teach us how to meditate. They teach us, and there are many, many methods of meditation. I'll get into that a little bit later. But what's often missing is the action logic or the greater context of why meditation is so important, and what the basic skills are that we will obtain from meditation. And again, it goes back to meditation will help you find the driver's seat, the control panel, and ultimately the driver of the mind-body system, so that you are driving the mind-body system most of the time rather than the other way around. So I'm going to walk you through my meditation practice, because in the Tibetan tradition, the object is you never drop your meditation. You learn how to meditate on the cushion, but you're always in the present moment. And that's the whole purpose of learning how to meditate. It's not to do something cool on a cushion. It's like, no, you develop the skill to, again, stay in the seat of the mind-body system at the control panel and operating your mind-body system, and avoid, when you get triggered by the phenomenon of life, you know how to get back in the seat and get back in the controls. So I've made I've had a regular meditation practice for a couple of decades, and Americans have a really, really hard time making meditation a habit. In my Sangha, in my 3-year retreat program, many of my fellows just never could establish that daily practice. It was just too hard. And so what are the secrets of doing that? Well, you have to make it fun, and you got to make it something that you look forward to. You got to make the practice cozy, and make it a habit. And so I'm just going to walk you through my practice. I do it first thing in the morning, and it really starts with my Italian coffee maker. I get out of bed, I go downstairs, and the first thing I do is I go to the stove and I grab my little coffee maker and I take it apart and I take the grounds out and I dump them in the compost bin. I fill the bottom container with water. Now I'm ready for the coffee beans. So I get organic, Swiss water process, fair trade coffee that's decaffeinated. I don't need the caffeine. Again, we're predated creatures. I have enough stress in my life, but I love the taste of coffee. And a lot of times, since I'm a B Corp person, I'll get Equator Coffee. They're a B Corp. So I love my coffee, and I love having the beans. So put some beans in the grinder, grind them up, spoon the ground coffee into my little coffee maker, stick it on the stove, light the stove. There we go. Okay, now I'm ready to meditate. It's going. So I go to my cushion. So right now I'm standing. I took the Tonka down, but I'm facing out. I've got my little altar behind me, so that gives you a little context. So I've got a little cozy space, and my little altar table. That was my great uncle's Bible table. It was in the front hall of his house, and the family Bible was on that little stand. My daughter gave me a couple of Cambodian tapestries that I've put everything on. So for me, it's a really cozy space. It's comfortable. I love my little carpet. The Tonka was a gift from a lama that I worked for. And then I light the candle, and I'm a beekeeper, so I love having beeswax candles. I love the smell. It just makes me feel cozy. And on a winter morning when it's dark, the candlelight it's really yummy. So I get myself set, and I do the first part of my meditation. And there are 3 principal meditation methods, or 3 common meditation methods. One is counting the breath. The other is focusing on an object. That can be a photograph of a teacher or a flower, or basically any object. And the third is reciting mantras. And I'm absolutely terrible at counting my breath. And here's what happens. I will sit and I'll start counting my breath, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I usually get to around 16 or 17, and then my mind is off. It's like, oh, am I ready for David today? Am I ready for this seminar? Have I done my slide deck? Oh, I don't think so. Maybe I better stop my meditation. And I'm going, I can't, for some reason, counting the breath, I'm really bad at it. And what typically happens, and this is where there's an opening for opening the heart. What happens when we begin meditation like me, you get to breath 17, your mind wanders off. It's thinking about today's, lecture or class. And 2 or 3 minutes later, you wake up and go, oh, wait a minute. My mind wandered off. And the tendency is to go, bad mind. And this is where compassion comes in. You can just go, oh, how about that? Okay, that's natural. Our minds wander off. They have a mind of their own, and they will wander. And once you wake up and realize your mind has wandered, you bring it back, and you start counting again. 1, 2, 3. And with me, I get usually 16, 17, 18, 19, and my mind is gone. I've tried this for years. As a lawyer, I think I have the gift of gab. So I used to have that. Many of us have that constant. The mind is constantly chattering. Oh, okay. I've got to prepare for this seminar. Have I done my slide deck? Oh, I'm really nervous. What am I going to wear? Have I set up the studio yet? And there's this constant inner dialogue. And I gravitated towards mantras, which in the Tibetan, in Sanskrit, I think means that which protects the mind. And in the Tibetan practice, we have really long prayers and really long mantras. And what I found was doing those mantras, and on the 3-year retreat, some of these things we repeated, 700,000 times, 1 million times. And what I realized was doing those mantras shut up that constant chatter. And somewhere in the practice, I lost that constant blah, 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 that my mind was doing. So that's the mantra practice. And then, staring at an object, I found that my mind would wander, not as much as with counting the breath. And then there's a fourth method, which is just abiding in the nature of mind, where you just, sometimes we encounter that stillness that's behind our thoughts and emotions and chatter and everything else. And it's just abiding in that. That's shamatha meditation. So those are the 4, principal methods. And now, I'm seated, I'm ready to meditate. I'm in a good mood because my coffee's on the stove and I'm in my cozy little spot. So I do the first set of my mantras. I get through the first part of the practice. There's a natural ending point when a particular prayer that I've memorized is over. Go to the stove. Oh, great, my coffee's ready. Turn off the stove. Get my favorite mug. And again, it's all about making this cozy. So again, I'm a B Corp person. So this is my favorite mug. It's a clean canteen, insulated 16-ounce coffee holder cup. It's got, I got it at a leadership development conference. So it's just, I love this cup because it keeps the coffee really hot. And pour it out. Get my creamer, shake it up, add it to the coffee. Oh, and then my wife doesn't drink coffee, she drinks tea. So I fill up the tea kettle and I got to remember to turn it on. I drop my meditation with this move right here. Sometimes I forget. I put the water in and I forget to turn on the kettle. So now I go back to finish my meditation practice. I've got my nice cup of coffee. And if you think this is cheating, one of my principal Tibetan teachers, in the middle of a meditation, huge group of people, I noticed he was sitting up on his little chair, and he had a beautiful ceramic tea mug with a ceramic lid to keep it warm. And he would periodically drink his tea. And I thought, well, you know, he's making it cozy. I'm going to do the same thing. So when my meditation is over, I go right into my workout. So I do rowing machine, or I do weights, and then the third day I try to swim. And that's kind of my practice. And I want to give you a few tools sort of to work with. What I call the sort of the motorcycle maintenance. And how do we support the mind-body system so that it can effectively meditate? And I love the Alcoholics Anonymous framework. You know, they have this acronym HALT. You know, people are vulnerable to relapse if they're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Well, we're liable to drop our meditation. In other words, our abiding in the present moment, the ever unfolding present moment, if we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And so what I try to do with my executive coaching clients is, because most of them are sent to coaches because they've been promoted, but they don't have executive presence. And we talked about this a little bit before 12:15, but what is executive presence? Executive presence is the ability to be centered in your mind-body system and sense and respond to reality as it's unfolding, and use the mind-body system's computational power that's constantly processing those 20 million bits of data per second and crunching that data through a whole variety of multivariable calculus equations to come up with the optimal way of showing up in the present moment. And if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, your ability to do that is impaired. So this is low-hanging fruit. So, because if you're in the limbic system, you know, you're no longer present. And if you're hungry, angry, or lonely, or tired, you're no longer present. You're in a survival routine. So, you know, the easy one is diet. So this is the antidote for being hungry. You know, eat healthy foods, lots of fruits and vegetables and nuts, go easy on dairy, meat, and alcohol, and keep fuel around. If you have a busy day, if you're working 12-hour days or whatever, you know, keep high protein energy bars or snacks around so you never run out of gas. You don't want to run out of fuel. So food is an easy one. Diet's an easy one. Exercise. You know, we need to exercise the mind-body system. And how do we, you know, we have more energy if we're fit, if our body is well exercised. So that's an easy one. And most of us have something we love to do, you know, Pilates, yoga, bicycling, rowing, running, beach volleyball. The point is, keep moving, be physical, get exercise, walking. And that's a very good antidote for being angry, because if your body feels happy, you're less prone to get angry. hang out with your friends. This has been a little more difficult in the time of COVID. We tend to be, we tend to be able to maintain normal physical distancing with the people with whom we share our households, but our ability to kind of hang out like this has been a little bit impaired. And this Zoom has been really a good thing for maintaining social contact, because what I've observed is that we may not have the physical proximity anymore, but look at the intimacy. I mean, I'm looking into Cheryl's house or Marilyn's home. I can see, books on her shelf. I can see her beautiful artwork behind her. So there's an intimacy that's come in the era of Zoom that I think is marvelous. And when we're operating from home, our work mass gets dropped. So maintaining, we're social creatures, so maintaining healthy social relationships and contact that's low-hanging fruit. And if you live alone, have a pet. It's been shown that having a dog or cat adds 10 years to a person's life. So social contact, healthy social contact is really important. And that's the antidote for being lonely. The other low-hanging fruit is getting a good night's sleep. And, we tend to be overscheduled. I think COVID and sheltering in place has slowed us all down. So we may be able to get more sleep, but sleep is an easy one. Getting whatever your body needs every night replenishes the mind-body system, makes it more resilient, and will allow you to stay in the present moment much more easily. All right, we've already talked about meditation, and here's an interesting one. This is my secret weapon. I had the great privilege of meeting David Allen and spending an hour and a half in conversation with him at a conference about 10 years ago. David wanted to be a spiritual teacher. He wanted to study Eastern philosophy. And every time he was scheduled to travel to the Far East, something came up and prevented him from going. And this happened 4 or 5 times, and he realized that he was being called for something else. And what he came up with was a system for managing your life's inbox. And just think about your life's inbox. We all have dozens of inputs that come into our life's inbox. It's the monthly bills, it's email, it's texts, it's assignments from the boss, it's requests from neighbors. We all have our to-do lists and stuff that shows up on our plate to do. And David basically applied everything that he learned from studying Eastern philosophy to coming up with a system to manage all of life's inputs. Essentially, this is a meditation system disguised as a productivity system, because what underneath all of this, what David is trying to do is optimize your ability to abide in the present moment so you can sense and respond to reality. And what he found is that if you have a checklist and a system for managing all of the projects that you're running for your boss, and a methodology for responding to email and texts and phone calls, etc., your brain doesn't have to spin cycles keeping track of all that stuff. And if your brain isn't having to track all that stuff, all the energy that goes into tracking that stuff is available for you to be in the present moment. And this is another one of those low-hanging fruit things. This is actually, like I said, this is a disguised meditation system for people in the modern world. And as a corporate lawyer, I was in a profession that eats details for breakfast, but I'm a big picture person. I'm a right-brained person. I was a painting major as an undergraduate, so I'm intuitive, I'm artistic, I'm the opposite personality type of the typical lawyer. And details were killing me. I nearly got fired in the first 4 years of my law practice because I just didn't give a crap about all the details. David Allen saved my life because I learned how to make a game out of managing all the details and systematized it. And he was my productivity guru, my work meditation teacher. So that's probably a good place to stop. And let me see, how are we doing time-wise? 12:52. So I wanted to give you a little bit of the context for why meditate. And what I found with the Tibetan tradition is there are a lot of prayers and aphorisms that, they're like Japanese koans. You'll kind of ponder it, and then 10 years later you'll wake up and go, oh, that's what that means. So in the Tibetan tradition, you want your meditation to be a constant flow, like the flow of a river. You never drop your meditation. And for the longest time, I was like, what? But I realized what they're really talking about is when your mind wanders off. If you have PTSD and you get triggered and you're in a full fight or flight or freeze response, okay, I recognize I'm triggered. Okay, it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes for the adrenaline to calm down. And so I have to let the mind-body system relax. And in 20 or 30 minutes, I'll have calmed down. I can get back to center. And then I can respond appropriately to what just happened rather than react. And that's really what meditation allows you to do. Is it shows you where the driver's seat of your mind-body system is. It shows you where the control panel is. It shows you that you're actually the driver, the person that's observing all of this. And it gives you the tools to return to that seat gently when your mind wanders off. So that's really what it's all about. As Eckhart Tolle says, it's all about now. How do we optimize our ability to abide in the ever-evolving present moment? And when we get knocked out of that ever-evolving present moment, where are the tools that allow us to come back into that present moment? Because when we're in that present moment and fully present, we can respond with an appropriate response to whatever has shown up in our life's inbox. So with that, we got a few minutes for questions, whatever, but I thank you so much for letting me give my first meditation instructions. So I'm really touched that you all took the time out of your busy lives to be here today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. This is very insightful.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. I've got construction in the background, but that was really a beautiful, beautiful presentation and talk, and incredibly insightful. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'll put my
Yeah.
I'll put my notes in the chat.
Yeah, and if you're, if you're starting a meditation practice, I started, doing like 2 to 3 minutes at a time, and I gradually worked it up to 7 minutes. And one of the good things about these things is they have the little timer feature. So, and then there are all kinds of fabulous meditation programs and apps that you can get today that weren't around 30 years ago. So there's all kinds of tools to help a meditation practice. But the real secret, if you're interested in this as a way of calming your mind body system and getting mastery of it, make it fun, make it really cozy, make it delicious. If you love a particular type of tea or coffee or whatever, or you have a particular nook that you love in your house, make it your little sanctuary. And so it's something that it's a ritual that you really look forward to every day. And, I do it with coffee. It's like, that's part of my meditation practice, is the whole little ritual of making the coffee. And by the time I've made the coffee, my mind body system is in the groove. It's like, okay, all right, next, when you start the day that way, whatever happens in the rest of the day, it's like, okay, I at least did something. I had a delicious cup of coffee on my comfy little cushion, and I did my meditation. I accomplished something. So the rest of the day can be the typical disaster where nothing turns out like you planned, but at least it got off to a great start, So